What it is, Brad Lea back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I got nobody, but fortunately I got the powerhouse Scott Galloway on Zoom. What's up, Scott?
Wow, love that intro. It's good to be with you, Brad.
Hey, thanks for coming on board, man. I always tell my people in my studio today I got a real treat for you, and I think I've outdone myself today having you as our guest. Couple of reasons. Number one, folks, if you guys don't know who this is, Scott Galloway, let me give my readers for this one because I made sure that it is official. Scott Galloway is a professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business, where you teach brand strategy, digital marketing to second-year MBA students, and is the author of the Digital IQ Index, which is a global ranking of prestige brands' digital competence. And by the way, 2012, Professor Galloway was named one of the world's 50 best business school professors, and he was elected to the World Economic Forum's Global Leaders of Tomorrow, which recognizes 100 individuals under the age of 40 whose accomplishments had an impact on global level. Is that for real? World Impact or World Economic Forum. Scott, out of curiosity, and again, you don't ever have to answer anything you don't want to, but you always hear the conspiracy theorists about the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and they're wanting to kill off everybody. Like, how foolish is that? Have you been to any of those meetings ever?
Yeah, so first off, good to be with you, Brad. And I was just thinking as you're reading that, I really need to update my bio. I'm reading all this shit. It's so dated. I got invited. So I peaked early professionally. I came out of the gates out of business school really strong and had the winds of the internet kind of dawn or era in the late 90s, winds in my back. So I got a lot of professional success very early. Excuse me. And I got invited to the World Economic Forum in this thing called Global Leaders of Tomorrow 3 years in a row when I was in my early 30s. I didn't see any of that. I saw, a bunch of very successful, very wealthy people getting together to talk about issues. But the notion that maybe they were disappearing to conference rooms to redraw the maps of the world, and they make a big effort to invite a lot of environmentalists and young people. And I generally think it's a good thing when people get together. I think when people meet, they're less likely to start shooting missiles at each other. And the moment I remember was the whole town is sold out. It's sort of like this mediocre ski town that gets over too many people, especially wealthy people. So I ended up at this shitty little hotel. And next door to me was this guy named Omidyar, and that was the founder of eBay. And then I went down to the bar, and at the bar was Yasser Arafat and Warren Beatty. And I'm thinking, when do you get to drink with these two guys in the same place? But this is like 1999. I was 32 or 33. Anyways, I'm actually a fan of the forum. I don't understand why people are so suspicious of it.
Yeah, well, probably because they're not invited.
By the way, I haven't been invited. I've been trying to get back for the better part of 15 years. And the last time I contacted someone that said, yeah, we'd love to have you as a corporate member, and it's like $160,000. To be clear, it's very much a for-profit disguised as a nonprofit. They make a shit ton of money.
So aside from being a professor, you're also an entrepreneur yourself. Obviously, you have books for sure, podcast host, giving business and marketing advice, political commentary, and general conversation. If you guys want to follow him, he's at Prof Galloway. And then YouTube's The Prof G Show, and then website profgalloway.com, professorgalloway.com. Dude, so let me ask you some people might call them stupid questions, but I really want to know your take. You're a professor still, currently, correct?
Yeah, although to be clear, I haven't taught since COVID. Me and my family moved to London 2 years ago, so I'm technically on leave, but yes, I'm still on faculty at NYU.
Okay, so
I've been there for 22 years, taught 5,500 students.
Okay, so that's what's curious, because I always, ran my mouth about college by saying if the professors knew anything, they'd be rich and they'd be successful. You are rich and successful. Are all professors like you, or are most professors not successful financially?
It's very situational. If you're a French literature professor at a kind of I won't call it a tier 2, but a non-elite school, you might be making 50 or 70 grand a year. You need kind of faculty housing just to kind of keep your head above water. There are, however, if you were to go to an elite school and you go into the business school, the top 10% of profs at any top 30 business school probably make 7 figures plus a year. And they don't make it at the school, but they make it on boards, consultings, advising hedge funds, advising companies, doing what I did, use the platform to launch. I launched a business intelligence business. But a lot of them, a lot of academics make a very good living. And even I think it's actually a great career. Sort of the mid-career, I'm very open about money because I think that the notion we're not supposed to talk about money is nothing but an attempt by the rich to keep the poor less wealthy, because rich people pretty much know what everyone's making. You know what everyone on your staff is making, but we typically instill as the boss this notion that they're not supposed to talk to each other about their salary because the asymmetry of information benefits us. Because when Bob finds out that Lisa's making 30% more for no real reason, Bob demands more and it raises our prices as the employer. So I'm very open about money. When I first started at NYU in 2002, I was paid $12,000 as an adjunct professor. And slowly but surely, as my courses became more in demand, I would consistently do market checks at Cornell or Columbia or Wharton, and I'd go into the dean's office and just in a very transparent way say, this is my value in the market. I wouldn't do that every 6 or 12 months. I do it every 3 years, and I want you to pay me. And by the time, until about 7 years ago, I returned all my compensation to NYU because I like to bite the hand that feeds me, and I didn't want to feel guilty about it. But at that point, I was making somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 a year. And I had faculty housing in New York, which was like literally on its own $100,000 or $150,000 benefit. In addition, the platform gave me an incredible entree into book agents, media. I was on TV a lot, and basically launched this business L2. And I've made a substantial amount of money since becoming a professor. And I would bet that the top 10 or 15 professors just in the finance department are making 7 figures plus. So academia at the mid-level is a nice lifestyle. It doesn't mean you don't make a lot of money, but you have a lot of flexibility. Generally, they'll help you with housing if you're on a tenure track or you're really good at what you do. But the best academics make an extraordinary living.
So what do you think makes them do that? Like if I'm making millions of dollars running businesses and marketing and doing the things I'm a professor at, why would I take my time to go teach, at a college?
Because it's wonderful, Brad. Did you go to college?
No, unfortunately.
Well, so I want to be clear. College isn't for everybody. 2/3 of Americans don't get a traditional 4-year degree. There's some incredible people, incredible business people who have no interest in college, and college isn't for them. But America does a small number of things really, really well. We make the best weapons in the world. We have the best software in the world. And I use software loosely to describe all technology. We make the best media in the world. You want to, if it's a movie that makes $1 billion with a guy in tights, it came from America. And then hands down, we have the best elite universities in the world. We don't have the best K through 12, but if you were to look at the most elite brands and best universities in terms of research, producing world leaders, producing people who go on to create a lot of economic growth, as much as people shitpost higher ed, 17 or 18 of the top 20 universities are probably in the U.S. I mean, the U.S. dominates elite aspirational education. The ultimate luxury item isn't a vacation in St. Bart's or an Hermes tie. The ultimate luxury item is to send your kids to an elite U.S. university if you're living somewhere outside the U.S. That is the dream of every parent in China or Switzerland or in Italy, that their kid gets to Carnegie Mellon or to a UCLA. So to be in that environment, to be around young people trying to better themselves, to be focused on a subject you find interesting, and you're pursuing this trivial, what feels trivial, but there's a small number of people who are really interested in the mating patterns of butterflies in the Amazon, and you're going to become the most knowledgeable person on that subject. I'd like to think that at one point in my life, I was one of the most knowledgeable people on how brands translate to shareholder value. And then to be in the company of young people trying to better themselves, and to be around other very smart people, and to be on a land-grant university in a college town. I mean, Brad, it's a good rap. It's a nice way to spend. It's a real, versus going to, when I was at Morgan Stanley, going to the 55th floor of 1251 Avenue of the Americas, and the big highlight of my day was leaving to go to Panera. And it's just a nice place to hang for a few years, or, to spend a career. Is it for everybody? Absolutely not. And I think we need to stop shaming parents and kids who don't end up at elite schools. I think that is something that as parents we need to stop doing. I think there's a lot of huge opportunities now for kids without college degrees. But teaching as a profession, if you can break your way in, and unfortunately because of tenure, there's way too many old, unproductive professors. If that sounds ageist, I am ageist. So we don't have as much opportunity for young faculty. And we keep hiring more and more administrators, administrative bloat. But generally speaking, a career in academia, I would recommend it to anybody. It's a nice way to spend your day.
See, you're basically explaining all my whys, because I always heard just hearsay. None of the professors make any money. Why would you want to learn business from them? You're saying, number one, that's bullshit. 15% of them are all successful. And those are the ones I'd want to learn from. Like, again, I would go sit in a college class for a semester or 2 or 3, for that matter. If the professor that's talking had some real world application, but a lot of the people in the world today are kind of painting the picture differently. They're saying, why go to college, spend all that money only to get out and work for someone who didn't go to college?
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit of a trope. If you look at the majority of Fortune 500 CEOs, and even the majority of tech startups, the majority of them, the people you're going to be working for went to college.
All of them.
And I mean, there's famous dropouts, right? Gates, Zuckerberg, but keep in mind, they dropped out of Harvard, right? I mean, these aren't exactly kids living in a trailer park who dropped out of high school, right? So and also, I mean, a guy that just died, Jim Simons, I think his name was, he founded Renaissance Technology, multi-billionaire. He's a finance professor at Columbia. Aswat Damodaran, who teaches valuation at NYU in the finance department. I would say conservatively, Aswat's probably worth $50 million because every hedge fund in the world wants him to come advise them. The top marketing professors, if you're the best at anything, if you're really the best at anything, the wonderful thing about a capitalist society is it's going to figure out a way, or you can figure out a way to make a really good living. The top law professors at NYU's School of Law go on to have enormously lucrative careers as rainmakers for big law firms. So I would bet that the average salary at a major business school, the average compensation, now granted, there's a big Gini coefficient, but I would bet the average salary, the mean across all faculty at a business school is $500,000 conservatively. And there's a few people, there's maybe half a dozen or a dozen people making 5 or 10 million more a year.
See, again, most people don't know this. They just don't. They're not aware of this, I would bet.
Well, we're not supposed to talk about money. And also there's a little bit of a weirdness. There's a large cohort of people at the school who don't have what I call commercial or retail skills, and their sole source of income is the school itself. And that generally they pay okay, but not great. And you're not supposed to talk about Jonathan Haidt wrote the seminal book. I don't know if you know Jonathan, but he wrote things called The Righteous Mind. And he's written a bunch of The Coddling of the American Mind. He's a behavioral psychologist. Is that right? Who also has an appointment at the business school. He just wrote a book called The Anxious Generation. And basically, he's the most influential scholar in the world. And he did a ton of research over 10 years, also with a woman named Jean Twenge, an academic from San Diego State, looking at the impact of what happened when social went on mobile, and looked at every study, did a ton of study himself, and has basically figured out that one of the worst things we could have done to our children was just totally unregulated social media on mobile phones. I would bet, and I don't know this, Jonathan's a friend, but we haven't shared this, I would bet that book is going to make him $10 to $20 million.
Whoa.
And if he just wakes up in the morning, he's going to make $2 or $3 million a year in speaking fees. So he's the Michael Jordan of academics right now. But be clear. I mean, and a lot of this leads to bad places. One, there's a general sense of, I don't want to call it jealousy, but you're not supposed to talk about the money you make outside of campus. But to get the best people, we let them do what they want outside of campus as long as they don't embarrass us, and more power to you, make a bunch of money. And but it's a fantastic career. And be clear, the best people at any university the best academics are making a shit ton of money. And what's also unfortunate is we've turned into for-profit enterprises masquerading as nonprofits, where we create this artificial scarcity. We let in fewer kids than we could to create the sense we're a luxury brand such that we can raise our prices faster than inflation. And the result is a transfer of $1.5 trillion from middle-class homes to the endowments and faculty administrators of universities in the form of student debt. So the financialization of universities is really one of the things hurting the middle class. So there's a downside here. But be clear, I mean, colleges are businesses. They are businesses. The reason I went from 12,000 to a comp package that was probably 300,000 or 400,000 is because I put a ton of butts in seats. And here's a number: to take a class at NYU Stern costs $7,000. One class, you get charged per class, $7,000. The last class I taught had 300 kids. That's $2.1 million, or $170,000 a night. I teach 12 sessions for me to basically do this for 2 hours and 40 minutes. That makes them a lot of money, a lot of money. And as a result, they try and treat me well. They put up with my bullshit when I start going off mic or off camera or off message about higher ed. But they put up with me because I generate a ton of money for them. And these are businesses. And some of that is unfortunate. I would argue that one of the great travesties or morally corrupt trends in our society is that universities have become corporations. They've been financialized instead of public servants. We think we're Chanel bags, not public servants. And it's a terrible thing for our youth.
Well, again, I mean, I got my ear to the grindstone or is it nose? I got my nose to the grindstone. No, I got my ear to the ground listening to some of the younger crowd about college and whether you should go. And again, in the entrepreneurial space that I'm in, you hear a lot of people just putting down college. Like, you don't need to go there. You're stupid if you do. Look at all these people that dropped out. You've got a great point as to that may be bad advice. I always tell people I would go for the relationships. If not for the education, definitely for the relationships. Because again, they're talking about, well, if these guys are so successful, why are they teaching college? Well, you just made a lot of sense. But I'd still recommend, if you're a kid listening to this,
yep,
folks, go to college, build relationships and build your network, because I think at the end of the day, you don't need a college degree to be successful. I'm an example, and there's many of us that are examples, but you definitely need relationships. And man, like you said, what a great place to hang for a little while, let alone teaching. Like, once you go out and win, I would say go in and hang. That's awesome. So you've got a new book out, don't you? Mm-hmm. Called The Algebra of Wealth, which is a simple formula for financial security. The Algebra of Wealth.
Yeah. Can I just back up and make one last comment about college?
Yeah.
I track every inbound. I get about 80 inbound emails a day asking me a question. And the number one question I get, I track everything, and strangely right now, is it too late to buy NVIDIA? Go figure. Anyways, but the number two question I get is, should I go to college? And Brad, the key is it's really situational. You need to speak to smart people such as yourself. You need a kitchen cabinet, because if you get into Carnegie Mellon on a full ride scholarship, I don't care how much you're dying to start a business. You'd be stupid not to go. If you get into a second tier school and it's going to cost you $60,000 a year to go, and you're going to have to borrow a shit ton of money, and you're really good with your hands and you know how to install energy efficient HVAC heaters, and you're making good money, then you may want to think about maybe not going to college. It's entirely situational. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I got into UCLA, which costs nothing. So it was just a no-brainer to go to college. But what you need is a group of trusted people that can give you no mercy, no malice advice. Because to say, should I go to college, is to say, well, what's it like in Europe? And it's like, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about Greece, or are we talking about Northern Ireland? I mean, so you really need a group of people who can be honest with you. Unfortunately, it used to be a no-brainer for most decisions, but it's become so expensive. Student debt is one of the few forms of debt that is not dischargeable, which makes no fucking sense, that we're not forgiving young people. And student debt should be the most forgivable form of debt.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that is?
Well, look, I think almost every every major economic policy that flies through the Congress is nothing but an elegant transfer of wealth from the young to the older, from the rich to the poor. And the credit card companies and the banks decided that young people should not be able to discharge their student debt. And young people don't vote. So what do you know? The child tax credit doesn't get through, gets stripped out of the infrastructure bill, but the $120 billion a year increase in Social Security for cost of living adjustment flies right through. The bottom line is seniors in our nation have figured out a way to vote themselves more money every year, and corporate taxes are the lowest they've been since 1939. I think D.C. has been essentially weaponized by seniors, rich people, and corporations, and young people who don't vote get screwed. And so one example of that is student debt is, think about this. You want to know the nightmare scenario? You're a good kid. Your parents want you to go to college. You never really were cut out for college. It's just not your bag. But you and your parents have been told your whole life you got to go or you or them have failed. And you end up in a tier 2 school paying a Mercedes price for a Hyundai product. After 2 years, you don't like it. Maybe you're even a little bit depressed. You leave, but you get to hold on to your 80 grand in student debt, and it haunts you the rest of your life. That is such bullshit. That is such a war on the young. But anyways, you asked, why do we allow that? Why do we have minimum wage at $7.25 and it hasn't gone up, even though productivity and growth have gone up? Why? Because it's young people. Why do we have capital gains and mortgage tax deduction, which are the two biggest tax deductions in history? Why? Because people my age own homes and stocks. Young people make their money rent and make their money from current income. So the bottom line is the old keep voting themselves more and more money at the expense of the young.
Do you think you would consider yourself a capitalist or no?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So do you think minimum wage should be? Do you think minimum wage should be raised?
I think I will make more money. I think the value of my portfolio will go up with an increase in minimum wage. The trope around minimum wage is that if you increase it, a bunch of small businesses will go out of business and the economy will be hurt. In the states where they've increased minimum wage $12 or $15, California and Washington, you've seen economic growth go up, because the wonderful thing about lower and middle income households is if you give them $1, they spend it all, and it creates a multiplier effect. It's effectively very stimulative. So
hey, say that last stat right there one more time.
So if you when you give a poor household $1, they spend $1 at least. When you give me $1, I invest it, which in some ways is good. It creates capital for corporations. It lowers interest rates. There is not an absence of investment capital. What there's an absence of is young people who can spend money on basic living standards. And it's creating rage and shame and anger among a younger populace that I think gloms onto conspiracy theory, is angry, becomes addicted, becomes overweight. I think if you really wanted, there's a stat right now, Brad, that I think is the ground zero for almost every problem in America, and it's the following. For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old isn't making as much as his or her parents were at 30. That is the general social compact. If I'm a good person, I play by the rules and I have kids, and my kids are smart and hard, and not even smart, but they work hard, the good kids, they should do better than me. That's why people come to America. They come so their kids will do better than them, and they will do better than their parents. For the first time in our nation's history, that is no longer happening. And a lot of it is because of this constant reshuffling of opportunity and prosperity from young to old. Who does increasing tuition benefit? The professors and the administrators my age. Who does it hurt? Young people that got to take out a ton of student debt. Minimum wage, if it had just kept pace with productivity and inflation, would be $23 an hour. It's $7.25. Insurance. I don't need insurance. I can absorb any medical. I canceled my health insurance 7 years ago. I'm a narcissist, so I'm like, I want the gold-plated insurance plan. So my insurance for me and my family, my healthcare insurance, was $55,000 a year. Can you believe that? $55,000 a year. And I noticed that we were always going out of network. And I thought, okay, I'm economically secure. I can take the hit on any illness. So I canceled my health insurance. And the first reaction is, that's un-American. That's irresponsible. You're a father. No, it's not. I can afford anything that happens to us medically. In the last 7 years, I have saved $375,000 in insurance premiums. That'll buy a lot of health care, Brad. 45 cents on the dollar in insurance is for administration and profits, meaning that if you insure your house, if you insure your car, if you insure your health care, you're going to get 55 cents back on the dollar. Now, if you're poor or you're middle class and you can't absorb a big hit, then you have to buy insurance. So it's yet again another transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. I don't need insurance. I can afford it. So instead of taking a guaranteed set of small losses in hopes of not incurring a big loss, I just say I'm done. Almost everything we do is to shove more money upwards into the already wealthy or to the old.
Ah.
You don't buy it, Brad. Give me some pushback.
Hey, but no, that's, dude, I listen to common sense, and to me, that sounds like freaking some of that stuff they call common sense, which isn't common. Like, dude, that's a great perspective, and I adopt it. Like, again, to me, I hear exactly what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense to me. What doesn't make sense, though, to me as a capitalist would be thinking that we should raise the minimum wage. In my opinion, and again, I am not a scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but in my opinion, dude, it should be up to the employer. Like, there shouldn't be a minimum wage. Like, if you can talk someone into working for $1 an hour, dude, number one, good for you. Number two, well, good for you. Like, I don't think there should be a minimum wage. Now, I don't factor in all the things that you probably factor in. Why? I'm not as worldly. I'm not as educated. To me, I'm a business owner. If I can get someone to work for $2, dude, who are you to come tell me I need to pay them $7? And not only that, it should be 23. Well, again, dude, if you charge me a minimum mandatory to do business and it's just raising my ability to do business, I'm just going to raise my pricing. So at the end of the day, consumers are going to pay for it no matter what.
Okay, a couple of things. So capitalism, free market, I get it. And I think above a certain number, it should be supply and demand of labor. I'd like to see minimum wage at $25 an hour. I think it would do amazing things for our economy. And we'd all get richer over the medium and long term.
Because the people that are only making $25 an hour will go spend it all in the economy.
They'll go spend it all in the economy, and they'll be less likely to be incarcerated, less likely to be obese, less likely to kill themselves, less likely to be drug addicts, which ends up costing us a hell of a lot more than raising minimum wage from $7.25 to $25 an hour. It also creates dignity of work. We end up with people who are more economically viable. They're more attractive to mates. They form households.
Confident.
They have good middle-class lives. They can take care of their parents.
Higher self-worth.
All that good stuff. Now, let me go back. I understand the argument. If someone's willing to work for you for $1 fine, do you think if a 12-year-old is willing to work for you, you should be able to hire that kid?
I think if the parent let them.
Well, we've decided the child employment and labor laws do not allow that. The kid should not. My parents.
I know, but the same people that you just said set everything up to financially reward the rich and the old are the people that have decided this. So again, I don't know. Like, in my mind, just being, I believe I'm one of the closest things to an angel walking the planet, meaning my righteousness, my moral compass is sound. I am not I'm a good guy. Let's put it that way. If you said, do you think a 12-year-old should be able to work for you for $1? I think if the parent wanted to let the 12-year-old, now I wouldn't have my 12-year-old working and I wouldn't hire a 12-year-old. But for the argument, I would say, yeah, if the parent thought it was okay, I wouldn't.
What we have decided is that a lot of parents, because of desperation or poor judgment, who would let their 12-year-old work instead of going to school, would do that. My parents were pulled out of school at the age of 13, no choice, and put to work. Had that been illegal, they'd been forced to get some sort of education, I think both of my parents would have been much better off. We decide that automobile companies, they would make a lot more money if they could pour their waste and their mercury into the river. We don't let them do that. We have emission standards. We demand that food companies test the shit out of products and pharmaceuticals. They would make a lot more money, and consumers might even allow them to do it. But we elect people who are supposed to be there to prevent a tragedy of the commons and think long-term and implement something called regulation. And I think that thoughtful regulation creates more long-term prosperity. You have to have an operating system for an economy. And the greatest innovation in the history of mankind isn't the fucking iPhone or the internet or the printing press. It's the American middle class. It created innovation and infrastructure that built the best P-51 Mustang, invented vaccines, invented the microchip, put a man on the moon. And unless you take money from the most prosperous companies and people and consistently recycle it, invest in the middle class, the marketplace on its own creates a small number of hugely wealthy people who who weaponize government to maintain their wealth. And at some point, the bottom 99% gets fed up with income inequality and shows up and kills those people, and we start over. The American middle class requires massive investment. It's not a naturally occurring organism that libertarians will have you believe that have already made their money. We talked about people trying to talk you out of college. You know what I can't stand, Brad? When a libertarian is offering a $100,000 scholarship to kids to drop out of school, meanwhile, he's a billionaire after getting undergraduate and graduate degrees from Stanford. It seems like it worked out pretty well for him. But regulation and thoughtful rules that we all have to play by are key to capitalism. It doesn't work. This shit doesn't work. I mean, maybe you're one of the lucky few aristocrats that ends up in a kleptocracy where you make a shit ton of money, but I don't want to live in that world. The reason I'm here with you is because of big government and taxes. I went to UCLA when it had a 76% admissions rate, and now it's a 9% admissions rate. And I got to go for $1,000 a year. And now, let me boast, I paid $14 million in taxes last year. So it's worked out for all of us. The big hand of inefficient, stupid government lifted me up, the child of a single immigrant mother who said, I know, let's reinvest in America. Let's find good but unremarkable kids and give them a shot at being remarkable by a manifestation of the government called the University of California. And then when his mother gets fired as a secretary, we're going to give her unemployment. When he needs money, he needs unfair advantage relative to his peers, we're going to do something called Pell Grants. I'm the beneficiary of affirmative action that is financially based, not race-based, which is where I think affirmative action should go. So I think government and regulation that's thoughtful, has it gone too far? Probably. I think government is too big. I think it's when it gets above a certain percentage of our economy gets bloated and gets weighed down. Does our tax system need to be reformed? Yeah. Should we probably cut taxes on the highest earners who are paying a disproportionate amount of their taxes? Yes. Should we raise it on corporations and the super wealthy? Yes. 25 wealthiest people in America paid an average tax rate of 8% last year. My guess is your tax rate is much greater than that. But on the whole, capitalism has to have an operating system, rules and regulations, taxation, and government officials that'll think long term for all of us. That was a rant.
Yeah, this is a rare, high-level, intelligent conversation I'm having. It's actually pretty good. I should try this more often. But when you're saying this, in my mind, again, if you raise minimum wage, I get the whole welfare and philanthropic viewpoint, and I agree with it. I wish I could help 1 million people, but if you cause me to pay my workers more, I'm just going to raise the price of my products more. So if that happened, market wide, yeah, I'm making $25, but now bread's $20. So it means I'm just broke at another level.
Well, no. So some of it gets passed on to the consumer, but a lot of it hits the shareholder or the owner. But also what you end up with is that if you put more money in these person's pockets, they end up buying more, and there's more of a multiplier effect. And we end up with more businesses and more consumption and more competition and more business and more wealth and more taxation, and we end up in an upward spiral. If you had minimum wage at $50 an hour, yeah, a lot of small businesses would just go out of business, and a lot of people would just decide to leave their parking lot dirtier with leaves. There is a sweet spot, but we're well beyond the sweet spot at $7.25 an hour.
But dude, again, I mean, I pay someone that technically could be minimum wage. I pay them, $5,000 a month. So that's not, and 40 hours a week. So that's not minimum wage. What is that?
Right.
So there's a lot of employers like myself that I bet could pay minimum wage, but we don't.
Well, but there's a lot that do though. So, okay. So
well, that's probably because in my mind, again, I mean, if I'm hiring somebody that I could get a line of people to stand in line for $7 an hour to do the job, well, that's the market. And to me, I personally wouldn't pay 3 times the market price to have a job done that could be done just as good by someone else that's willing to do it for a third as a capitalist. Now, I might give them $10 an hour. Why? Because I want them to stick around. I don't want to keep training new people. I want them to do well. And then if they do really well, I might pay them double what I had to pay. But I get that as a business owner, Brad, but do you really want people to work for you full time who live in poverty? Negative.
Okay, so why not make that just a general rule that anyone who works 40 hours a week should be above the poverty line? I think that seems
Is
like a decent
$7 the
rule.
poverty line?
Oh, it's well below the poverty line. That's $15,000 a year. Who can live on $15,000 a year?
Well, can I ask you a better question? Who's dumb enough to work for that?
Someone who has no other options and is trying to get ahead and feels like, okay, I want to start a career. I got to do something. I want to be productive. I want to show some progress.
But Scott, this is where hopefully me and you can have a healthy debate.
Yeah.
You make it sound like there's people that they have no other option. Who doesn't have another option?
Well, as evidenced by the fact there are a lot of people making minimum wage.
I know, but that's because they accept minimum wage. I will never work for minimum wage. I don't think I've ever worked for minimum wage. Have you?
Because you have more opportunities and access than many people in America, Brad.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, brother. Like I came from a low income, broken blue collar world, and the fact that I'm white, if that's what we mean by, I get more advantage because of my white privilege, again, I do think that there is such a thing as white privilege, especially when you're in a world full of racist. But to me, other than, that, and by the way, dude, a lot of white privilege, I think in some areas is assumed, meaning they don't care if you're white or black, dude, you're in a shitty area. But I came from the mud, let's just say. And dude, I don't buy the fact that people have no other option. And that's why I want to know, like, describe the person.
So you're saying they choose to make $7.25 an hour?
Yep, they accept it.
Okay, they accept it, but if you were to say, so let's talk about the balance here.
Yeah, but have you ever worked for minimum wage?
Yes, all through high school and college.
Okay, you didn't have to. You chose to.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I chose to, and I didn't have options to make more money. And at that point, minimum wage was on an inflation-adjusted basis a means of not living well, but having some reason I could pay for college. Minimum wage, if it had just kept pace with productivity and inflation, would be $23 an hour. I don't think it makes sense to have. I mean, it comes right down to this: what is the downside? The downside is some businesses would have less profits, and I would argue over the medium and the long term, those companies are going to do better because we're going to have more money in the economy. Also, I think America is about a dignity of work. I think we work. I think working is really important, especially for young men. And if they feel as if there's no opportunities or their prospects are barely worth it, they are incentivized to not work. And the economy is really strong. Unemployment is pretty low. So I think a minimum wage has much more upside to bring it up to where productivity and inflation would have taken it naturally, and to offer some employers in low-income areas where there's a surplus of employees, not a living wage.
Now, you got quite a few followers on social media and gaining momentum. I'm sure a lot of my bomb squad, that's what I call my listeners, are going to start following you. I see some of them trolling you, though, because of that. I would almost call that a liberal perspective, no?
Minimum wage is something that gets, it has more fans on the left, but it's actually getting increasing momentum, I think, on the right. But I get trolled for much bigger reasons than that. I get trolled by the left. A lot of people call me a misogynist or prof-genocide because I'm very pro-Israel.
Because you're pro-Israel?
I'm very pro-Israel.
I thought everyone's pro-Israel.
Well, not really. I think there's a lot of people who think that Israel does not acquit itself well and is engaged in a war that they would accuse it of being genocidal. I think there's a lot of people who are not pro-Israel. But
I think that there's just louder on the opposing side. Like I'll bet you there's just as many people support Israel as they do the other side.
Oh, I think it's more. And the data reflects that the majority of people my age support Israel, and it's like 50-50 among young people. You're right. It's a vocal minority, but I believe they're our strongest ally in the Middle East. I think they're kind of an American experiment. Jury trials, no cruel and unusual punishment, no child labor, no honor killings, no forced marriages. I think Israel is kind of a beacon of hope in the Middle East for us, but I think on campuses, including my own, I've seen a level of anti-Israel, even leaking into anti-Semitism behavior, anti-Semitic behavior that I would have never thought. But we started the conversation with trolling. I get a lot of people, and I don't know if they're bots. I get incredible pushback online. And the hard part is what I've noticed, Brad, and I'm curious, it sounds like I'm going to make an assumption you're center right, I'm center left. I'll just say that just as a working point. If you're hard right, you can find your people online because you can go into a filter bubble, extremist love online. You can surround yourself with people who just, we all bark up the same tree. The same is true on the hard left. And what these algorithms do is they try and figure out who you are. And then if they figure out, oh, Scott leans left, I'm going to serve you a bunch of videos of Ted Cruz looking like an asshole, of all this election denierism that makes me hate the right and feel better about my progressive policies. If I'm on the right, I'm just going to show these video cycles of the squad saying what feel like anti-Semitic things or things that are just void of all practicality and engage in massive identity politics. And the one thing that everyone's agreed on is that we can all hate moderates. So the far right or the right considers me a libtard and calls me that online. What's even worse is the far left considers me an apostate, someone they thought they could trust. But when I say no, I'm not for student loan debt forgiveness unless they're doing something, serving in a public service job or something like that. When I said that I thought Kamala Harris was a great attorney general, a great senator, and a mediocre VP, I'm immediately 2,100 comments on that thread called a misogynist. Oh, I hate women because I said Vice President Harris was not, in my view, a great vice president. So, and I'm sure you get a lot of pushback online, but what you have to realize, and I'll mention this hopefully to a learning, Sam Harris, I don't know if you follow Sam Harris, he's a role model of mine. He said something to me that really kind of changed my perspective about a decade ago. He said, if you have economic security and people who love you unconditionally, you have a responsibility to speak your mind. And another thing right? And then another thing that helps me, I'm sure you get pushback. We all have coping mechanisms. My atheism is a huge source of comfort for me. I know that everyone whose opinion I care about is going to be dead soon, and so will I. That none of this really, in some ways it's wonderful and profound, but in a lot of ways it's insignificant. And the people you're worried about, what they think of you, it really doesn't matter. And something I've suffered from my whole life is I think everyone has a certain level of addiction. My addiction, I'm not addicted to THC. I love it, but I'm not addicted to it. I'm not addicted to alcohol. I love it, but I'm not addicted to it. I'm a little bit addicted to money. I think about it too much. No matter how much money I have, I keep trying to get more, but I'm slowly but surely breaking that addiction. My addiction, Brad, is to the affirmation of strangers. And I realized that about 7 years ago, I was becoming too concerned with what strangers thought of me and not concerned enough about what the people in my life who love me and I love think about me. And I've tried to totally flip that and tried to come up with some behavioral exercises, meditation, my atheism, to sort of screen out some of the criticism I get online. Because the reality is, if you're not getting significant pushback online, you're not saying anything. I could just post puppies all day and show Simone Biles doing an unbelievable routine at the Olympics. No one's going to push back on that. But if you go out and say young men are struggling, stop it already. They're paying for the sins of the advantage I got. And a young white guy from a red state, tell me what his advantage is right now. There's no data showing he has any advantage over any other group. As a matter of fact, in some ways, he's disadvantaged. And boom, they come for you, right? And they come for the people on the right, too. So unfortunately, I think the discourse online has become so polarized, so coarse, that all the incentives are for us to all bark up the same tree instead of having some critical thinking about these issues and figuring out a way to get the majority of us together who are somewhere in the middle to agree on things so that we can actually govern. This legislative session has been the least productive in history. They all want to go on TikTok, shitpost each other, inflame the censors of the hard left or the hard right, raise more money, wash, rinse, and repeat. And meanwhile, nothing gets done. They all hate each other. They're not willing to work together. And the result is, essentially a totally ineffectual government.
Well, we all agree on that, don't we?
That's something we can come together on.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Like the left and the right, I think we both agree that the government's number one corrupt. Do you believe it's corrupt?
Corrupt's a strong word. I think it's been weaponized. I think there's a lot of people in government who
Do you think there's backroom deals, payoffs, corruption?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but most of it is legal, unfortunately. We voted for it.
It's legal, but it's still corrupt. It's corrupt. It's corrupt when I can serve in the government and insider trade and nothing happens to me.
Speaker Pelosi, I've said that all that is the most obvious example. I serve on boards of directors. I'm not allowed to trade in those stocks because I have material, non-public information. The fact that she can sit in a defense meeting and figure out what submarines are about to be approved and then go buy Northrop Grumman stock is outrageous. It's outrageous.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Now, again, I don't know why that's fair, but again, I assume that's the corruption I'm talking about. And you can't, and no one can do anything about it either. And if you try,
actually, they're passing a law to outlaw that. That looks like it's going to pass. That looks like government officials are going to no longer be able to trade stocks. It looks like we're going to be able to fix that.
Well, that's going to screw me up then, because I finally got smart and went to this website where you can see what they're trading, and I'll just ride with them.
Whales? What's it called? Fail whales? Or wait,
it's called.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's called
something whales. Yeah, a friend of mine, a really smart guy, who's actually my neighbor, helped start that site. But they just track the stock trades of our elected officials.
So real quick, because listen, I could be talking to you for several hours, I'm sure, and I know you didn't have several hours scheduled. So I want to talk to you about marketing. I get a lot of entrepreneurs that follow me. I'm an entrepreneur. What is the number one thing you would tell a company that can't seem to get a steady stream of qualified, interested buyers coming their way? Because marketing, that's to me marketing. First, correct me if I'm right.
When you say buyers, you mean customers?
Yeah, like I always used to think sales was key. Like I was the sales guy from heaven, not from hell. But in other words, I was very good at sales. I could talk people into doing anything. Now, I used to say that's the number one thing. Well, now I'm leaning towards marketing's more important. Why? Because if you're an unbelievable salesperson with no one to talk to, dude, you're screwed. But if you're an average salesperson with a bunch of people to talk to, you're going to make sales. So I would rather put marketing as senior to sales. And marketing is generating inbound interested people. No?
Yeah, so there's a lot there. And I think about this a lot. So the primary algorithm for creating shareholder value from the end of World War II to call it the introduction of Google was make a mediocre shoe, salty snack, or sugary drink, and then wrap it in these unbelievable brand codes of youth, sex appeal, European elegance, and take amazing creative and pound away at those associations. Be like Mike or whatever it might be, or you're sexier if you have, you use this suntan lotion, or you're going to be hot and young and American if you drink this light beer. And we use this really efficient, inexpensive vehicle called broadcast media, where everyone was watching the same 3 channels, 5-7 hours a day. And that's gone away. The introduction of Google now creates these weapons of mass diligence, where I used to always stay at either the Four Seasons or the Mandarin Oriental when I was traveling. Why? Someone else is paying for it. And 2, they're always a solid 8. The brand says we're a solid 8. Now, with TripAdvisor, Google, my social graph, I can figure out that no, the Hotel du Cap is the best hotel in Antibes, and that's where you should take your wife for an incredible vacation. The Soho House Berlin has the best gym. I like to work out. The Beverly Hills Hotel has the coolest pool scene, and I no longer have to defer to the brand. And so the era of brand has effectively come to a close. And keep in mind, I make my living teaching brand strategy. We are now in an era of what I'll call supply chain and innovation, and that is, first and foremost, you have to use some sort of digital technology or artisanship to just have a better widget. I shave my head. There's a former East German Messerschmitt factory that makes the best hair clipper now. I found it on a blog. They have no marketing, no advertising. If you have a truly better product, people will find you. So product excellence is the new bomb again. You spend a lot of time thinking about how to make your podcast better. Salesmanship, or what I refer to as storytelling, is now the core competence that I would want to pass on to my kids. Information systems, I don't know, AI may do away with most programming, but, whatever it is, Mandarin, no one needs to speak another language. It's all going to be English pretty soon. I think it's a great exercise. Do it for joy. The skill you would want to give your kids is storytelling. right? The ability to craft a narrative to convince people to come to work for you, invest in you, buy your product. That is the enduring competence. So you need a better product, the ability to storytell, and then entrepreneurs such as yourself, we have one thing in common. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. We are willing to get out a big shiny spoon and eat shit. What do I mean by that? We are willing to endure rejection. It sounds simple. 98% of people aren't willing to call a potential client, get them on the phone, have the client go, I'm not interested, please don't call me back, and then have the person go, I think what you're saying is I should check back next month. And keep calling people who don't want to hear from you. To go up to a strange woman in a bar, try and open and endure the type of rejection you get in the mating market, right? 98% of people aren't willing to sign the front of checks and start a podcast. They're only willing to sign the back of checks. Everyone talks about starting a business. Are you willing to go home every month and tell your spouse or your parents, I'm working 60 hours a week and I've got to put another 10, 20, 50,000 bucks into the business for the privilege of working 60 or 80 hours a week? So a better product, someone has to be able to sell. And then the most overcompensated people in the world are the people who either played with the wrong toys or the right toys, either have too much self-esteem or not enough self-esteem, I can't figure it out, but are willing to endure rejection. Show me someone who's got a much hotter wife than them. I'm going to show you someone who can endure rejection, because there were 9 women who rejected that guy before someone gave him a chance and found out that he was kind, that he was funny, that he had a plan. Show me someone who has a fucking amazing business, and I'm going to show you someone who called dozens, if not hundreds of investors who said, I am not interested, and talked to employees who weren't interested in working with them, who talked to advertisers who said, I'm not interested. Your ability to endure rejection, that is the superpower. I don't even know you when I know you. I know you are willing to endure rejection.
Facts. So back to the marketing question, even though that did it's related to marketing. What would a business do right now if they want to generate more inbound? Like, for example, you say a better product. Okay, I got the best product on the planet. The problem is people don't know they want it. In other words, if I threw you the keys to something that we have here, I'd come back in a year and you'd be sitting in it eating lunch, thinking it was a beautiful place to have lunch, when in reality, if you hired a pilot and knew what those gadgets did around your lunchroom, it flies. It goes to New York and you're walking there, locking up your lunchroom before you leave. Like, in other words, maybe they don't know that they need the product. What marketing tip could you give to those entrepreneurs to generate more traffic, more interested parties? Is there anything that you teach in school that would lead to that?
Well, look, it's situational. If you're B2B, I would argue that it's thought leadership. First off, you've got to really understand the new tools for marketing. Direct response marketing on Google and on Meta, you got to understand these tools. These are the new means of customer acquisition, but it's situational. I was in a business that did business intelligence, and what I did was I put out a ranking of brands based on their digital competence, and I would put out a teaser of the research. The media loves rankings. They would publish them. And then it would be a table of contents. It would say Nike versus Adidas on Instagram, page 47. They go to page 47, and it says, click here for more information on membership to L2. So I created a reverse inquiry model. And that for me was through thought leadership and then deft understanding of email and also buying some keywords on search. For every business, it's different. For some businesses, it's going to be hand-to-hand combat, taking your craft beer to expositions, figuring out influencers that can help you talk about it, doing really funny, quirky videos on YouTube. But generally speaking, after you have a great product, it's going to be a combination of really understanding direct response mediums. It's just the little things, a better looking video, a better sounding mic, really clean aesthetics. I think thought leadership is a fantastic means of marketing. Look at Mr. Beast, right? He just says every day, every time he put out a video, he tried to make it a touch better. The first podcast I did got 700 downloads. I get 300, 400,000 downloads per pod now because every week I tried to make it just a touch better. I'm in Aspen right now, so the lighting is shitty, but focus on lighting, focus on sound engineering, focus on better guests, focus on I'm sure this is what you're doing. It's the little stuff every day, one foot in front of the other. And then, this is more generally speaking, but the team of the best players wins. My superpower has always been an ability to attract and retain really talented people. I've always dug into my pocket early in the year to pay people well in hopes that they'll stay loyal. But there's all kinds of interesting marketing tools out there. HubSpot is really interesting for trying to create inbound marketing. But starts with a great product, starts with someone who's willing to sell, and then weaponizing direct response mediums and technology. And then it's situational based on the industry and the product you're selling.
Do you consult with companies? If someone's listening to this going, man, I like this dude and they're smart as hell, can someone hire you?
No, I spent 20 years of my life renting my brain to old white men for a lot of money. I'm out of that business. Now I'm bragging. I've consulted to 34 of the 100 biggest companies in the world, either the CMO or the CEO. I made a great living at it. I mostly enjoyed it. I'm done. I'm done meeting with powerful people. I will only meet with students and young people. I'm done. That part of my life is over. I'm economically secure. And the gift I give to myself is I don't play golf. I don't vacation with clients. I don't have dinner with strangers. I try and take all of my human capital and focus on young people now.
What if they're just mentally young, like myself?
Dude, it seems like you're doing just fine.
Well, I do okay, but dude, in spite of myself,
I don't believe that.
I'm telling you, dude, I tell the truth. I always tell the truth.
The fact that I'm here means you're doing really well. We get asked to be on every podcast, and my team vets everything. 97% of the time it's a no. They're like, oh yeah, this guy's a huge following on YouTube. You should do it. So you're clearly doing fine.
Well, again, I think accidentally and, thankfully, I do okay, but it's in spite of myself. Like when you said, I'm sure you're doing these things. No, I'm not. How do I improve my podcast? Dude, the only way I try to improve my podcast, believe it or not, is less interruptions and better guests. Like I look for guests that my listeners would want to hear. They want to hear from you because they're trying to grow their business. They wanted me to talk about marketing. I'm going to get shit because we talked about politics. I'm still interested in some of the things you were saying before. I want to get back to those things. I could be on here for hours almost debating, because I think debating kind of shifts my perspective, and I like to shift my perspective. Before we got on this call, minimum wage, raising, and I'm still that way, by the way, but you're getting me to kind of see a different side of it. But to me, the only reason I'm quote unquote successful, and by the way, successful compared to who, but the only way I would say I'm successful is because I'm just accidentally good, and I think
I buy some of that. My guess is you've worked really hard. My guess is there's a certain amount of luck around all of us. I was born a white heterosexual male in the 60s, which gave me unfair advantage. I'm also a fucking monster. I'm talented. I work hard. I take huge risks. If I was a monster in Indonesia, I wouldn't have the life I have. So the wonderful thing about being born in America is if you're good here, it's better than being great in most nations. So we're in the right environment. But the smartest thing we did was being born in America. It sounds like we have similar backgrounds. I was raised in, I call my household growing up upper, lower, middle class. It sounds like you came from a lower income household, but you got more of a shot here, I still believe, than anywhere in the world. What really pisses me off is these tech bros who shitpost the government, are highly critical of America, and yet, in my view, would not be billionaires had they not been fortunate enough to either immigrate here or be born here. And the most loyal and patriotic Americans are the ones who have invested the most, that is veterans. And I find it so obnoxious that the most privileged and fortunate among us tend to be the least patriotic. I don't know where I was going with that, but I bet you have worked really hard. And, it's never, I don't know where you are, but it's hard to get off the treadmill. I grew up with no money, and my sole objective professionally was to be rich and awesome. That's, if someone had said deep down, what do you want? I'm like, I want to be rich and awesome. I want other men to find me interesting and want to be my friend. I want strange women to want to have sex with me. That was kind of my goal. And the way to get there in America is to be awesome and rich. And my whole life was about being those things. And then as I hit some economic security, I thought, okay, I need to get off this treadmill because I can always imagine more money. And I wouldn't say I was unhappy. I was always happy, but I thought, okay, I have a really healthy, finite nature of life. I want to start using my money to do experiences with people I care about to make me feel closer to them, to have that absence of stress I've had my whole life because of economic security. And I'm going to start giving money away because it makes me feel strong and masculine and American. But I don't think any of those things would have happened as fast or at the magnitude they had I not, had my parents not decided to immigrate here from Scotland and England such that I could be born here. So I feel very blessed. I know what you're saying, that you feel like you're accidentally successful. No, you're not. It's both, right? We both got lucky, but we both worked really hard. And you got to be both. But the great thing about America is you only need to be lucky once or twice. And if you're unlucky, I've started 9 businesses. I'm generously like 3, 4, and 2. I've had more failures than successes. But the wonderful thing about America is we don't embrace failure. That's bullshit, but we tolerate it. And I was always able to raise money again. I was always able to attract employees. And all I needed was to be successful once. They say 1 out of 7 companies are successful. Easy. So I started 9. And 2 were super successful. And that's all I needed to live the life I had. But I was always willing, when I got beamed in the face professionally, shot in the fucking face, both professionally and personally a few times. I was always willing to get up. That takes some resilience. But America loves to kind of give people, we're the land of second chances. Vegas is America. Talk to the dealer there, making a decent living. They're like, divorced 3 times, in debt. And they're like, that's it. I need a new start. And America is a great place for a new start. So if you're not trying really hard and taking real risks here, you're not embracing what is fundamental or unique or singular to America, and that is we forgive failure. We don't embrace it, but we forgive it. If I'd been born in China, I'd be in prison for the things I say. If I was born in Europe, I'd be successful, not nearly this successful, because they don't embrace risks the way we do. This is really, you and I were born in the right place at the right time. You're younger than me, so you haven't recognized the advantage I had. But this was the right place to pitch our sails and let those winds take over.
Man, well said. Dude, I wish I could have you back more often. I appreciate you coming on this time. What can the Bomb Squad do for you? How do we get you some like satisfaction?
Oh, thanks, brother. I wouldn't be here unless I want to reach different audiences. My work is now very focused on the plight that struggling young men are facing and how to reform higher education. I make money off my podcast, so hopefully people will tune into either Prop G or to the Pivot podcast. I write books, but I'm just trying to, I'm at a point in my life where I want to have an impact and influence, and this stuff helps me do that. So, that box has been checked. I appreciate you having me on.
So if I go get the book, I'm a youngster, I go get the book, The Algebra of Wealth, that's focused towards helping the youngsters?
Yeah, but it's for people who are also in their 30s and 40s. People in their 40s think, oh, I haven't saved a lot of money, I'm done. No, you're going to work another 30 or 40 years. You're going to probably live another 60. And to a certain extent, the landing lights are on. You know how much money you need. Hopefully you have a partner you can get a limo with around. It's a memo to my younger self. I've been rich 3 times and broke. And then the first 2 times I went broke again. And because I didn't understand the basics of money management and economic security. So to a certain extent, this is advice to my younger self. This isn't a Susie Orman, get out of debt, chop up your credit cards kind of book. This is for someone who's working hard, is pretty good at what they do, makes a decent to good to great living, but wants to establish economic security such that by the time they're my age, they can just focus on relationships. Because money is a means. It's an amazing means, but the ends is the following: an absence of economic security such that you can focus on what is the key to happiness, and that is deep and meaningful relationships. And the book is based on, we've all heard that research that, you're the average of your 5 friends. Body mass index, politics, job, income, you become the same person. What's different, where there's variance, is one of those 5 people, despite making about the same money as the other 4, will end up economically secure. What are the behaviors and character of that person? And that's really what the book is about.
And I can get this right now everywhere?
Oh, yeah. Dude, we're number 1 on Amazon. Come on, man. Invest in this relationship.
Hey, what's funny is youngsters are who got you on my show. They said, hey, do you want this guy on your show? And I said, let's see, who's this guy? And then I looked at your following. He said, dude, you and him think alike. I said, why do you think that? He says he believes that men should pay the bills. And I'm like, well, because I did a video once. It got like ridiculous amount of views that said if you have a good woman and she's outspending your income, you just need to make more money. People ask me, well, what do you think about first dates? Who should pay the bill? I think men are there to provide and protect for women and children. Like that's just isn't that the way to do it? Isn't that like normal? He said no, and the guy thinks the same way. So I said, okay, done. Let's get him on. So, dude, I'm glad I had you on. I'm going to go get your book. I'm going to listen to your podcast. It's called The Pivot.
The first one is Pivot with my co-host, Kara Swisher. That's about tech and business. And Prof G is my podcast, and Prof G Markets is about the markets. So either Prof G or Pivot.
You need to start another one called, Shooting the Shit with Scott Galloway.
Well, that's why I come on pods like this. You're very good at this, Brad. You set people up for success, so I appreciate it, and I can understand why you're successful.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and hopefully in the future you'll come again. I have a lot more questions for you.
I'd like that.
All right, Scott, I appreciate it. I'm going to go get the book. Folks, everyone go get his book. Everyone go subscribe to his podcast, and most of all, hit him up in the DMs. Let him know you're with the Bomb Squad. And Scott, I appreciate you coming in. Folks, until next time, keep it real.